Hey everyone, I'm Scott. I'm an introverted Canadian, so that's a tough act to follow. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. I want to talk a little bit about field data collection in the geohazards world today, why I think we need more of it, and how we might go about it. Statistics can't create data. I actually stole this title from a line in a paper by my mentor, the late great Aldrich Hunger. It was the last paper he ever published. Like a lot of things Aldrich said or wrote, it really stuck with me. And he wrote this line in the context of slope stability analysis and the dangers of fitting curves to sparse geotechnical data. But knowing Aldrich, it was also a general warning about over-reliance on models that aren't well supported by real data. Field data collection was really important to him, and he loved doing field work. And in case you didn't notice, the tiny figure walking across the rock avalanche in this photo, that's Aldrich. I actually think most of us in the room here already agree on the importance of field data, and so I'm not here to rant about it or anything like that, but I think most of us also agree that lab work and desktop work are important too, and actually most of the work coming out of my own research team falls under the desktop category. All three elements are obviously needed on most geotechnical projects. When it comes specifically to geohazards research, I think intuitively a similar balance is needed overall. Around the time I was asked to propose a topic for this talk, one of my students got back from a big debris flow conference, and he said, nobody's doing field work anymore. Everybody seems to just be doing flume modeling and numerical modeling. And it started a good discussion with my research team, and so I thought, this talk would be a good chance to expand that discussion. I'm also on sabbatical right now and sort of pressing the reset button on my own research, so this topic's been on my mind. I'm showing a rough breakdown of the papers at that conference, and you can see that the papers focused on field data collection still made up about a quarter of the papers there. But if you go back 20 years and do this exercise again, you can see, and I was at this conference back in 2003, you can see there's definitely been some kind of a shift over the years. Does it mean anything? I don't know. Maybe a rise of technology since then, maybe partly a COVID hangover recently. Does it mean that field data isn't as important to us as it used to be, or maybe that we're running out of good field data to collect? I don't think so personally, and I'll give you a few examples from my field, and I'm sure you can think of examples from your own lines of work too. This question on the screen actually comes up a lot when we're designing structures to deflect or trap debris flows, which are actually a common hazard around here. How fast is a coast mountain debris flow? It's a really important question. The answer affects how big our mitigation structures need to be, so it directly affects project costs and feasibility. If we underestimate the value, our structures might not be big enough to reduce risk enough, which is dangerous, obviously. And if we overestimate it, it might not be feasible to build our structures at all and get any risk reduction at all, which I think actually is even more dangerous. So, honestly, nobody around here really knows the answer to this question. We've seen videos of debris flows in other places around the world, like Switzerland and Hong Kong, but what if our local debris flows are a little bit different? Our instinct is to turn to numerical models to try to get the answer, but numerical models rely on field observations for validation and calibration, and without that real data, we sort of get stuck in a loop, right? Where without the data to constrain the model, we have to use our judgment, and then the results we get out of the model are a self-fulfilling prophecy. We get what we tell the model to tell us. So I think we need to get out there and instrument some creeks and record some real debris flows. Here's another example from the landslides world. When should we issue landslide alerts? And this question's been a hot topic around here since some atmospheric rivers rolled through a few years ago and caused some big damage. And actually, a student in one of my classes back then was stuck overnight on this highway, just at the top of the photo there. He emailed me from his car to ask if he could get out of writing our midterm exam that week. It's probably the best excuse to skip an exam I'll ever get. Anyway, to answer this question, we usually look for correlations between rainfall and landslides, and we know there's a relationship there. But when you start to look harder at the data that's actually available, you start to see some pretty big holes in it. For example, we don't usually know the exact timing of landslides, let alone the day when the landslides actually occurred. We also have a pretty sparse weather station network around here, so our rainfall data may not reflect what's actually happening up in the mountains where the landslides are actually triggered. It's one of the reasons why people are nervous about relying on these things to make big decisions, like when to close a highway. If we set conservative thresholds to account for this uncertainty, we get a high false alarm rate, and that's dangerous too, because then the public might just start to ignore our warnings. So I think we need to get out there and install some local weather stations and geophones and other sensors to pinpoint landslide times. This is just one more big picture question from my field, which is probably still a question in other fields too. What fundamental processes are we still missing? We know our models can't do everything. In the landslides world, when we go out in the field to look at deposits, we see things like tree jams that redirect flows at unexpected locations. We also see self-channelization behavior where the landslides themselves, they carve out their own paths. And our models can't simulate either of these processes very well yet, even though they may have a bigger impact on the results than the flow rheology, which has been studied to death for the past few decades. So I think we need to get out there and document these processes better, and we may even discover other processes that are important too. Now, I told you I'm not here to rant or anything like that, so I really hope the next few minutes don't come across that way. But what I've done is jotted down over the last few months just a few guiding principles for my own research team. I told you most of the work that we do until now has fallen under the desktop category. So if we believe more field observations are still needed, we need to put our money where our mouth is. So the rest of this talk is kind of really just like a pep talk to myself, I guess. And maybe you all didn't need to be here for that, but maybe there's something in it for you too. The first principle is that, I think we do need more raw field data. And I've shown you a few examples in my own field where we specifically need to fill data and knowledge gaps. We can't solve all our big challenges just sitting in front of computer screens. There's also an important training aspect, right? Getting our students out in the field helps prepare them for real-world practice, and showing them the fun in field work might make them less likely to grumble when their future project managers send them out there. Our second guiding principle is that we need to collect the right kinds of data, not just data for the sake of data, but targeted as much as possible. The reality is, field data collection is really expensive. If there's been a decline in the last 20 years, it's probably one of the main reasons, especially here in Canada where baseline research funding is frankly terrible. The baseline operating grant that I get from our federal government's $1,000 lower than the minimum salary that a single grad student needs to survive here in Vancouver. So you can do the math. It really doesn't leave a lot of money left for field work or anything else for that matter. So to do our research around here, we need to partner with industry, and industry wants practical solutions, right? So we need to be targeted and efficient with our field work. Our third guiding principle is that we need to get out there and collect good data while things are still fresh. And this is something I've actually changed my mind about a little bit lately, to be honest. When a disaster happens like the atmospheric rivers here a few years ago, my own natural, I guess, introvert instinct is to try to stay out of the way. I've also seen researchers, rush in to try to be the first to publish on a case study, and I think, it sometimes comes out half-baked. But I've realized we lose the chance to collect good data if we wait too long. Roads and culverts need to be cleared. Obviously, the dozers show up, and a lot of valuable data gets lost. This one obviously needs coordination with emergency managers, and I know down in the States they have the Geotechnical Extreme Events Reconnaissance Team, or GEAR for short, and there might be a few people in this room who are involved in that. Their mandate is to collect perishable data before it's too late for the benefit of the whole community. And I think we should adopt something like that up here, or at least extend the invitation to the GEAR team if that's not happening right now. Our fourth guiding principle is that we need to engage better with local communities where we do our field work. And this especially applies for Indigenous communities where we're working in their traditional territories, which is basically everywhere in BC. We need to follow their protocols. We need to get their permission to go on the land and collect stuff. And ideally, we can get out there with them. This is something I have to admit, my own research team hasn't done very well in the past, and we're still learning how to do it and how to do it better. But it's really important. There's obviously a lot we can learn from locals, for one thing, especially in the field of natural hazards. But it's also important from a reconciliation standpoint around here, and you see this principle popping up on other calls to action. The kind of data I'm talking about really belongs to them. And that ties in with our fifth and final guiding principle, which is that field data should be shared, especially data that's collected with public funds, like most academic data here in Canada, and especially data related to public safety, like most geohazards data. I think people who put in the effort to collect the data should be able to publish with it first, but past that point, it should be shared. It shouldn't be hoarded. Publications definitely have value, but novel data has inherent value too. And it would be great to see open access databases given more credit in academia. And it would be great to see more industry people reaching out to academia when they have good project data to share, especially if it might spark some new discoveries. So industry people here, please reach out to your friendly neighborhood geohazards researchers if you have anything cool to share. And thanks for this chance to give myself a public pep talk, I guess. Let's get out there and collect and share more good field data together.